Hi, I'm Eric. In this first introduction video, I'm going to discuss a bit about the user interface of QGIS. QGIS out of the box comes looks different than most of the implementations I've seen, and it is because every user can adjust it to his or her own needs. Independent of the operating system you use, you can just change most anything you like. So we're going to have a look today at the user interface. We're going to adjust some settings, and we're going to introduce plugins. We got two plugins that I'm going to show you that make your life a bit easier. Without further ado, let's have a look at QGIS itself. Right, let's have a look at the user interface of QGIS first. When I start up my QGIS, it looks like this, and it's a bit, well, it's not the most clean installation. What I have here is a lot of toolbars that you can move around a bit. I have a few panels open. The layers panel is always on the left. That is, in most GISs, that is the case. And on the right there's a layer styling panel, but also a processing toolbox. And as you can see, these two are the two panels are docked on top of each other, where you have these tabs to switch between the two panels, and that is one way of docking your panels. If you want to add a panel or add a toolbar, right click somewhere here and you see all the available panels and all the available toolbars. So for example, if I would add a browser panel, it docks right here now, and that's okay. This is where I can browse for data. Some people find the browser panel extremely useful, some find it a bit over the top because you can also use the Windows Explorer for this, but otherwise this is fine. So there's a few options to dock the panels. It was docked here down from the layers, and you can see where it turns blue, that is where it will dock. So if I dock it here, it will dock between in these two options. What I could also take them out together, or I could, if it's docked again here, I could pick up, for example, the layers panel only and change that. I can switch docks off, panels off and on. If I want to switch it back on, there's the trick to that. So that is for all your docking issues. You could also dock it, for example, here, but the most common position is left and right, where you can have the layer and everything else on the right. Another thing is there's a lot of settings going on, and the first setting I want to discuss is language. As you can see, my setup here is in English, but out of the box QGIS uses the language of your operating system in order to get your language for QGIS. If you go to settings and options, or whatever it's called in the language that you currently have installed, and you go to the general tab, you see this box here saying override system locale. So if I switch this one off, the system locale will take over. So if my computer is in Dutch, then the whole thing will be in Dutch. I override this. I set the user interface translation to American English, and I use American English because whenever you need to do something QGIS that you haven't done before and you want to look it up, have a tutorial on video somewhere, most of the time it's in English. So use the English interface, that's my advice. The locale for numbers, date and currency formats is in Dutch. Here you can see we use a comma as a decimal separator in the Netherlands. If I also want to use a thousand separator, you see what happens, you get a point there, because we use, in the Netherlands, we use points for thousand separators and not for decimal separators. There's a few other things here. I've changed the font because I don't like the Qt default font, so I changed it to something that I do like, which is Corporate Office. I could change the size for that as well, but this is fine. And this is the icon size, which means that as you can see, the buttons, they change size. 24 works for me, but if you have good eyes and a 4K laptop monitor, it might be advisable to change that a bit. Otherwise, there's a few other settings here that we need to discuss. Coordinate reference system is one. We're going to do another tutorial on coordinate reference systems more in general, but for now it is good to know that every country has its own coordinate reference system. As this project will all be in the Netherlands, it might be a good thing to change your coordinate system for projects, the default to EPSG 28992. And 28992 is the Rijksdriehoekstelsel Dutch coordinate system. This is another nice option. If you load a layer that has no coordinate system, what will QGIS do? Normally it automatically reprojects all data to the project coordinate system, but what if it has no information on in what system that data is? You could use the project one, or you could prompt for it, so you could, it will come up and question you about, okay, what coordinate system is this? Otherwise, just leave the settings as they are. So after you set the settings, we're going to load a few plugins that make life a lot easier. One of them is, and that is through the manage and install plugins. If you have a look at this, the plugins, it says here 694. Basically there's 3 options. Either you see here a number below 25, or you see something in the range of 500, or you see something in the range of 600. If you see a very low number, let's say 20, 25 or 15, whatever, means you have no internet connection, so it cannot reach the repository for the plugins. There's one setting in plugins that I advise, and that is also show the experimental plugins. Experimental doesn't mean unstable or something like that. It just means it hasn't been totally accepted yet, but some plugins tend to stay experimental for over 5 years and they work fine. So check this box. This is the plugin repository where all the plugins are. So if you have these settings, you have internet connection, and you can find this one. As you can see, it's connected to this plugin repository now. You'll have, if you go to the All tab, you see that there's nearly 700 plugins now available. Here's a search, and the first thing you have to search is PDOK. That is Dutch for Publieke Dienstverlening op de kaart, public services on the map. And there's this services plugin. And this is a typical one that you really need. You see it comes with a warning here. I have it already, but it says it is a new version available. So I upgrade now. Right, done. Now this plugin comes with this small toolbar, and this button is the most important one, because here you get access to all kinds of material data services. As you can see, there is over 11,000 data services available. There's a lot of extras here, and here you can see, for example, you have the Open Topo map, which is a very nice map of the Netherlands. This one is tiled, so that means that if you zoom in more, you get to see more detail, and you see that this one becomes really nice and detailed here. Let's have a look at this specific building. You can see it's pretty, it's decent. You even see the benches here in the back of the architecture building. Another thing here is that there's a location search engine. So if, for example, I want to have a look at Markt in Delft, it will bring you to the Markt in Delft. That works for all addresses in the Netherlands up to the house numbers as well. The bottom here is for cleaning up button here. That means that this yellow marker is removed and this is empty. So that is one extremely important plugin. There are a lot of other plugins. For example, if we go back to the architecture building again, this one is called ruimtelijke plannen. That means that it can look if there's a spatial plan at a certain point. So you click the button, you click on the building, and you see is there a spatial plan here. And you can see there's a bestemmingsplan here for the TU. Well, let's have a look. Double click that one and let's see what it comes up with. And there you can see it's quite a large plan here, spatial plan. Here you see it's got the, let me have a look, the enkelbestemmingen, this is the one. You can see it's got most of the spatial planning zones included here. This is a connection to the formal plan, so that means that you can really, this has legal value here. Okay, so that's the interface, and there's 2 plugins that are interesting.